Where you going with this? Who you controlling with this? You think you got some nerve? Boy, say word. Cause I'm flowing with this. I think I'm growing with this. I think you knowing with this. I'm gonna show 'em with this. Hey you guys, it's your girl Taisha P back at you again with another episode of Trust and Transformation Station. And here at Trust and Transformation, we believe that every day is an opportunity for evolution. And I just want to encourage everyone that listens to this podcast episode to know that where you are right now does not determine your future. It is just a stepping stone on your destiny, if that's how you choose to look at it, and move with intention as you continue to go about whatever it is that you're seeking to achieve in this lifetime. So today, what's on my mind to discuss? I feel like I just went through that really fast. But yes, today what's on my mind to discuss is how failure is one of the greatest gifts you can ever get. Now, for one, many people despise failure. Many people avoid failure. And many people feel like failure is a reflection of who they are as opposed to something that just happens. And I want you first to know that failure is a part of life. There's nothing that you will be 100% at. There's nothing in this world that is 100%. Even things that seemingly work all the time or seemingly have the expectation to naturally just be efficient when it's needed can always fail. You could wake up one day, turn on your TV, and for one random reason or another, it starts to glitch. Or your phone starts to flash this weird screen that you've never seen before. Or you take a test after not having enough sleep and you do poorly on it, or just not as what you expected, because obviously everybody that wants to do well, you're not going to sit here and like to see you get a 70, a 65, whatever low grade that isn't a reflection of who you are and your intelligence. So failure in a nutshell, what I'm getting at is it's inevitable at times, but it is something that we should look at with a different lens and perspective, because it is one of the greatest teaching tools you can ever receive. Failure will allow you to learn what to do better next time. It will allow you to learn where you went wrong, what pitfalls did you step into and did not have the realization that you were going down that direction. It will allow you to transform your thinking so that when you take another stab at what you're trying to accomplish, you won't use the same methodologies that you used the first time. You know what to avoid and what to stay away from. And sometimes altogether, if you're not even meant to go down that route that the failure happened, you will learn about new ways and new opportunities that can be birthed out of that may take you down a whole nother direction that you didn't even see to begin with. But that failure was the catalyst for you to see that opportunity, instead of thinking that if it wasn't that one way, you will never make it. And that is something that it touches a personal point for me, because there's a lot of times in my life where I prided myself on being the overachiever. I prided myself on being the person that, had the perfect grades, that always did what she had to do growing up, on the church choir, on the dance group in church, on the praise team, secretary of the youth department, was on the school band as a trumpet player in elementary school, on the chess team. All these things that I looked at as a source of validation, even as a child, and didn't even realize it. Although I enjoyed it, I'm not going to sit here and act like any of those things I didn't enjoy. I've loved all of it. I still find a very, reminiscent, energy when I think about those things. And I think about, man, I used to do so much. How did I even have the energy to do all of these things? Because they will all be going on many times simultaneously. It wasn't like, okay, I did this, for a couple months and then stopped. These are things that I did for years at a time all together while still attending school. And up until practically high school, graduating as a junior, I prided myself on being the overachiever. I had to be doing the most, and I had to be excelling. And to be quite frank with you, I look back now at that time and I'm like, while I loved that I was so ambitious, I didn't realize how much I hung my hat on being one dimensional in a certain way. And that is just the focus on, if I'm not at the top, then, it doesn't matter what else is going on. And when you put yourself in a box like that, to some extent, although I'm doing multiple things, it's all centralized on one idea of me being the best, me being super intelligent, me, having the brainiac mindset. That can destroy you, because the moment that you're not a representation of that, your self-image crumbles. You start to wonder if you're as good as you think you are. And I come across a moment where I was humbled in that way. Some people know this if you know me personally, and others that just don't. But I didn't graduate college. I ended up leaving as a senior, and technically at that point I was a super senior, and I didn't graduate. Partially, I want to say because of my grades, and I only say that because I knew if I did better and really applied myself, because I stopped applying myself, I kind of checked out mentally at a certain point, and I could recognize that. I won't say that it was depression because I wasn't diagnosed, but in learning about depression, I could definitely see signs of, like, in retrospect, that were there, that I just wasn't applying myself as I normally would as a student, and that I learned the art of coasting, doing just enough so that I could get passed along, but not really going above and beyond like I normally would. And at the end of the day too, when it comes to college, there's nobody going to be there propping you up and saying, go to class, go to class, go to class. So when you have the choice to not go, you just don't. And that's something I started to do, along with other things that wasn't a representation of my upbringing and just wasn't a representation of me as a student, how I've been my whole life. And on top of that too, another thing, just being transparent, loans, grants, and all of that stuff wasn't covering it anymore. I had taken a class over the summer, and I didn't realize that how the financial aid and all of that worked out. It just wasn't going to cover the semester I needed to graduate. And I had to leave. And it was a gut punch. It was a gut punch, not only because obviously I didn't graduate, but because so many people always recognized me as this, yo, Taisha, you're so smart, you're so this, you're so that. And it was almost like I knew there would be questions of what happened to you. And I also knew there would be questions of why didn't you do this? And why didn't you do that? And what's wrong with you? And, growing up in a West Indian community, West Indian family, failure is something that is very frowned upon. I think a lot of times, funny enough, we look at the Asian community, whether they be, from Chinese to the Japanese, or even the South Asians of like the Indians, we look at them as like throwing the book at you when it comes to succeeding educational wise. But I think it's underestimated how much immigrant families in general, especially when it comes to the Black community, whether you're talking about Africans or West Indians / Caribbeans, they do not play when it comes to doing well in school. And depression and anxiety and all of these other mental health conversations that we talk about now, that's not something that they cared about when it came to education. They were like, if you weren't doing good, that's that. And I grew up in a Guyanese household where, doing good was the only thing you should be doing, and that's that. There's no exceptions. There's no let's figure out why you're not doing good. And no, it's you have to be doing good, and that's that. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's something that was natural to me up until I went away to school, and I struggled a lot. And I think, for one, I just was ill prepared. I didn't really take the time to understand the concept of college. I just wanted to thrust myself in a new environment to say, you know what, let me get it done just like I did everything else. And for some people that method works, but for me, it was not it, because it was almost like I was thrown into adulthood with a mix of school at the same time. And I don't think I was properly educated on what that looked like, especially as a student, excuse me, that lived on campus. I wasn't, just commuting to school like I had the option to, because here where I live in New York City, there's a bunch of schools I could just sit here and go take the train, do my classes and go home. But that's not the experience I wanted for college. I wanted to be able to say I lived on campus and, really immersed myself in the culture of truly attending university, because I've watched so many TV shows. College Hill, oh my gosh. And I probably shouldn't have even been watching that show growing up. But I was watching it and I was enjoying it. And I wanted to experience that for myself. And so I think just being misinformed, I should say, and not prepared and just unmotivated in different ways, especially because this concept of being the overachiever to now being the one in the sea of many overachievers, that you're not the shining star that you thought you were. It was very humbling. And I had to, and not in a disrespectful way to myself when I say that, but when you come from these environments where your class is, let's say, 20 to 30 students, and you're in the upper range, but now you're in a class where there is a lecture hall and it is 400 students, and your teacher can't give you that one-on-one relationship like you used to resonate with. It is a transition that I think a lot of people don't understand or prepare for before going into college. Well, the size of my college, my college was very big. So there wasn't that interaction that I was used to between a student and teacher. And I don't think I even knew that going into it. I thought it was just going to be like, Taisha she always on her business. So it's going to be what it's going to be. And I wasn't on my business. And in fact, I fell hard, and I was learning about so many other things, just what adulthood really started to require. And be quite frank, I didn't know what I was doing. And I can say it now because I I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed of saying, hey, I was 17 when I went to college. And normally I would have been 18 if I graduated as a normal senior. And that year being taken off to just be thrown into the deep end of the pool, it made a difference in how I showed up as a student. But I don't regret it, because tying back into what I started talking about originally as failure being one of the greatest gifts you can ever have, is that me leaving school required me to really say, now you have the choice. Are you going to sink or are you going to swim? Are you going to choose to thrive or are you going to choose to be a victim of your circumstances? Are you going to complain about where you are? Or are you going to look at what your opportunity has given you as a blueprint, as what's the word I'm looking for? As a launching pad to say, I didn't just walk away from here with nothing. I didn't just walk away with going to school and not gaining any type of insight as to what I can now use to not only propel my career, but propel my life. And glory be to God, I had the vision in 2020 when everything was shut down and nothing was going on. God told me to start Trust Transformation. And I remember in college, I had a friend, shout out to Sabrina, I love you, girl. I showed her my journal. And this is a journal I had since middle school. And it had so many poems and songs and inspirational messages and things that I just wrote down that just ministered to my heart, even as a young child, that I was like, I'm being motivated to do this and I don't know why, but it's going to make sense in the future. And one day we were just talking about, things. I don't even remember really what drove the conversation at this point, but we were just talking and my journal came up and it was something that I didn't have a problem with sharing with her, because while it was personal, it wasn't so personal where I felt embarrassed or ashamed for somebody else to read it. It was something that I even thought of in the future of like, this is something I could see people reading. And she said to me, this is something people should read. This is something people should have access to. This is beautiful. This is amazing. This is awesome. I love this. And she was just encouraging me that what I had written down for years was just so valuable. And I'm like, wow, okay, there's something here and I'm going to run with it. But I didn't do anything with it initially. And time went by. Then I found myself in 2020 thinking back on that conversation with her. And I said, I want to start a blog. And that could be exactly how I share this work. That can be exactly how I share these messages, not only with my intimate circle or my friends and family, but it could be with people worldwide that love to read, that need encouragement, and would like to hear it from the perspective of a young woman that has been through her set of challenges, that has taught her lessons along the way. And I birthed that blog. I'm not as committed as I need to be, but I'm working on it in this season, especially because I feel the fire within me to do so. I feel confident enough to share my story. Up until now, this is not something, in telling this story and the true inspiration behind Trusted Transformation, I've never shared this online. So this is a real expansive moment for me. This is a real transparent moment for me, just like I was in being transparent with her that day. So yes, I ended up creating the blog, and this was actually spring 2020 semester in college, and we had to be moved out like maybe a week before lockdowns really were implemented, we had to move out. So this is like early March in 2020. And I created Trusted Transformation in May, June of 2020. And I ended up going back to school that following semester. And then that's when the news happened of me having to leave come that January when I would have been done. And as heartbroken as I was like, you know what? I have to pick myself up by the bootstraps and make something happen. So when I came back home, I started to look into what I wanted to do. I fixed up my resume and I started applying the jobs. Just applying. And I ended up getting an interview with a dental office, my first official marketing position as a marketing assistant. And I was so grateful because a part of what I shared on the interview was that I had created a blog, and I felt like that entrepreneurial spirit within me of just creating something and also showing my skills of being a builder and using my creative gifts in a way on the internet. I think that, kind of pushed me over the edge of some of the other potential candidates, and I got hired on spot. And I was so grateful because it was like God had positioned me exactly where I needed to be in that moment. And it really gave me the courage to say, no matter how unconventional my path may be from this moment forward, I'm exactly where I need to be. And although I did fail, that failure wasn't my ending. It was a launching pad for my beginning. And now I see myself 4 years later working from home remotely as a content strategist, thriving in my career, constantly getting recognition from my peers, really making an impact at my company. Since I've been working here, I've gotten a couple of raises. I've gotten promoted maybe once or twice. Yeah, I'm trying to, because sometimes it's like lateral promotions are like kind of iffy, but yeah, the point is I've gotten acknowledgement, and my work has been continuously showing that it is valuable based off how I'm receiving feedback and based off of just what I have been able to do. And it's encouraging to me because I wouldn't have imagined me back in 2020 feeling the way I felt about my life, feeling the way I felt about myself, feeling the way I just felt about what my future was going to look like, to end up now being in this position where I can only see myself continuing to grow and blossom and bloom because I gave myself a chance to fall. I gave myself a chance to fail. I gave myself a chance to not be the overachiever. I gave myself a chance to, not be everything that anybody else wanted me to be. To not be that person that I thought would have been the only route for me. I know deep down, God made me go down this uncomfortable and unconventional route as far as my career, because I wouldn't have learned about it any other way. And I say that because sometimes I think and I'm like, I could have seen myself, getting the salary I wanted. Well, before I go into that, graduating from the school on time, getting the salary I wanted, and doing all the things, as far as advancement. But for one, I probably wouldn't have built my own platform, or even if I did, it would have been something that I started and then just stopped working on because I started focusing on the thing that I knew was working, which would have been the career, right? And I feel like a lot of people have this false sense of security where it's like, because I do well in my career, that means I shouldn't, create my own thing. And granted, not everybody is meant to create a business, but I do think and believe. And one of my favorite online mentors that I always listen to, Tony Gaskins, he always speaks on building something you cannot get fired from. And I totally agree with that, because so many people get caught up in this matrix of working for somebody or simply just relying on a paycheck because they feel like it's more secure than a business. But the thing is, we see that layoffs are always a thing. We see that companies have budget cuts. We see that industries literally go extinct because technology evolves and there's no longer a need for that job anymore. So when those types of things happen, what are you going to do to make sure that you stay self-sufficient enough and that you're not relying on somebody to be the period at the end of your sentence, and make sure that you can afford your bills? And that's why I was motivated in and of itself to start Trusted Transformation as well. Not because I just want to build this grand empire and just make a lot of money off people and all that, but because I understand the importance of having your own. God forbid social media shuts down tomorrow. I have a way that people that enjoy my content and my message to still hear me, to still see me, because I own my own platform. And that is something all creatives should be considering. Create your own website. I'm not going to tell you what to put on it, what not to put on it. That's up to you. But creatives, at the sound of my voice, if you're hearing me, if you agree with me, if you rock with my content, and if you rock with your own, create your own platform. That's just a little sidebar. But going back into what I originally was talking about as well, about the failure part of everything, I've learned to fail. And funny enough, Tony Gaskins himself, he is a multimillionaire that also has not graduated college. Black man, country Florida, but he got himself together. And he's also an author and writer, which is something that I just knew resonated with my spirit to listen to him. When I just heard about more of his story, he's an amazing teacher, and he's somebody that any faith-based creative definitely needs to tune into. But yes, failure does not determine where you're going to go. I've grew so much through failure. And I believe that I'll only continue to grow because God has given me the strength to withstand any amount of failure, and understand at this point in my life that failure does not determine my value. Failure does not determine where I am going to go in life. And that failure is not going to make or break me. But failure is just a way for me to learn and to pivot and to move and to trust God, and trust that what I've been taught, to trust that what God's promises for my life are, that I won't fail, that I won't fall. And even if I do fall, I can get up. And I don't have to choose to stay down because it didn't work out the first time, or because this may have happened in a way that I didn't like. And that's it. There's so many things that happened in my life that I look back and I'm like, man, I wish that didn't happen like that. Or, man, I wish I had, you know, this person to support me. Or I wish I had this and I wish I had that. And man, why did I have to fail? And there were moments where I had that. But then I realized you don't grow out of your successes. Your successes get you to feel more confident, and they're the confirmation that you're on the right path. But your success don't make you grow. Your success just gives you a big head sometimes and, makes you feel like you're all that in a bag of chips. But your successes, they aren't, what you should be focusing on to keep you moving towards a direction where you need to really challenge yourself and put yourself in position to elevate. And when you realize that, you begin to appreciate every failure as it comes. And immediately it's going to sting. I'm not going to sit here and act like when what happened to me, I was happy and excited about it. I was not. It crushed me. When I tell you, it was tough. Anybody that understands, some spiritual concepts, I felt like I went through the dark night of the soul. I felt like a part of me died because the mask had dropped of keeping it all together. And it was for the first time in my life I had to face that I wasn't all of that. And so many people never get that realization because they want to believe the illusion that they are this and they are this because of what they have achieved. Knowing that many times accomplishments and achievements are butt skin deep. You got to go deeper than that. Who are you at your core? That will tell you. That will tell you what you have to not only work on, but where you are truly going. And having that in those encounters, having those situations, they have shown me you have so much more to get together. So that's why at this point in my life now, I don't regret it. I thank God that God put me in certain positions to fail because God knew He will raise me up. He will raise me up. And He's not going to just keep me in this position where I just never succeed. That my situations, that my lifestyle will be birthed from pain to create purpose that is getting transformed into power. I resonate with that now. I resonate now with understanding that no failure goes without a lesson that could be utilized to transform your life. And if you want to transform your life, you got to start to embrace that. If you really want to become a new person, you got to embrace that. If you really want to be someone that goes against the grain in the best way, that stands out as an inspiration, that shows yourself to be someone that, despite what comes, your help, your love, your light, it is God ordained. You're going to keep it going. You're going to do what you got to do even after your failure. And that your failure won't be the end for you. It is only just a launching pad for your success. So, this was a long one. This was probably my longest podcast episode, but I felt the need to really share this story because I feel like a lot of people, they look at people with this perspective of, because your life is good or better than it was, or you undergo some level of transformation, or you start to get certain blessings, that means your life is perfect, and it's always been. And I'm the first to tell you, my life is far from perfect, and I'm sure over time, as I continue to grow more comfortable sharing my story, people will learn and hear and see and know my life has been nothing but lessons on lessons on lessons, and learning to embrace these new blessings. So I just want to say thank you so much for listening. It's your girl Taisha P. Later, y'all.